Anthony, I think maybe the best place to start is an interesting proposition, because I have read probably more often today from writers all over the country, some that are local, some that are national, some that are regional to these schools, some that are way on the outside looking in.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gathering a little bit more regularly than I expected that the consensus opinion is that Notre Dame lost this game more than Ohio State won this game. And I'm having a hard time getting behind that idea, because I can understand a few instances where Notre Dame made some mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
So did Ohio State. And I just don't know that I'm willing to sit here and say that, with a minute and 26 seconds left and the ball on your own 35-yard line, that Kyle McCord marching the team down, making a couple of misses along the way, but largely clutch throw after clutch throw. I know there were only 10 guys on the field, man. I get it. And we're going to talk about that for the last play. But I feel like Ohio State had a chance, took the bull by the horns, and went on and won this game. And I don't think they're getting enough credit for that.
Yeah, it's just really your perception of, or the perspective you're coming from, because I think that there's a number of instances where you could say Ohio State took advantage of what they had and won the football game. And at the end of the day, right, like 3rd and 19, you can make a lot of excuses for a lot of things, but you still got to deliver a football. You still got to make a catch. 4th and 8, you still got to drop back with pressure in your face against tight man coverage and make a clutch throw and move the sticks. 3rd and 7 earlier in the drive, you still got to make those throws. So yeah, if you're looking at it with green color glasses, I think you can say that maybe Notre Dame lost the game. The only play that, from an Ohio State perspective where you're like, okay, we got lucky, is the dropped interception, which would have sealed the deal. But hey, they didn't make the play, and that's fine. Guess what? Ohio State still had to go 40 more yards to win the football game, and they did that. That's kind of the biggest takeaway, in my opinion, was that, there was 2 teams out there that had a chance to win the football game, and one did it. I don't care what happened out there. One team has more points than the other team, and that team's luckily ours, and it's Ohio State. And, I think that, that sentiment of Notre Dame blowing the game, whatever. I think Ohio State did plenty enough, in my opinion, to get credit for going out there and taking a huge game in a hostile environment in enemy territory, and kind of moving to 4-0. I mean, I think that was such, as we've grown, we're now 24 hours away. As we keep going further and further away from it, I get more impressed by the win that the Buckeyes put on yesterday.
And look, I understand that maybe, from a Notre Dame fan perspective, you're probably hurting today, right? I mean, there have been a lot of games in the last decade where you just felt like victory was snatched away from you at the super last second. And maybe this one stings more than others because of the way, literally the drive that happened at the end of the game to put it away. But I can point to a number of instances on both teams where there just flat out wasn't enough execution for any separation. And, both teams had coaching staffs that chose to be really aggressive. Both teams struggled in some short yardage situations in critical moments. I just don't, and look, I don't think Notre Dame was pointing any fingers and saying, hey, we let that one go. I thought there was some ownership in the Notre Dame postgame press conferences, right? Like nobody at that side of things was taking away from Ohio State what they did. I'm sure Notre Dame fans are feeling like, God, what's it going to take for this team to figure it out and put a game away late? And I get that, but
yeah,
we're here to talk about Ohio State more. And I think the appropriate perspective to take here is you got a young quarterback who's playing in the biggest game of his life. You play high school ball and you're recruited by everybody all over the country, and you think about, where am I going to go play my college football? What kind of stadiums can I play in? What kind of atmosphere can I play in? What's my experience going to be like? You literally dream of moments like last night, and to get the chance not to play in that game, not just to play in it, but to have a chance to run a 2-minute drill late like that and go deliver. I mean, Kyle McCord's he's big man on campus, man. He's a superhero.
I mean, think about it, Brendan. Anyone who's ever, even us, like anyone who's ever picked up a football or cares about football has spent some time in their backyard, either with their brother or their dad or their neighbor or their friend. Hey, we got 1 minute to go in Ohio State Stadium. We're down 3. We got to go score. You dream of that situation as a kid. And Kyle got to go out and do it in real life. And I mean, sitting in that stadium last night, I couldn't get over the fact that, or just the environment, like how intense it was, how loud it was, how just crazy it was. And the fact that they were so cool, calm and collected, composed, and he was able to execute in the biggest stage of his football life. Talking about Kyle McCord, I think was just an incredible thing to watch and witness. And for him, it's got to be, you wake up this morning and you're like, did that actually happen? Like, did I just lead a game-winning drive against top 10 Notre Dame in South Bend? That is what you dream of as a kid. And it's hats off to Kyle McCord, man. He has his fair share of doubters, and for whatever reason, can't make all the throws, or maybe not athletic enough, or maybe not tall enough. But he said, hey, screw it. I'm going to go win a football game, the biggest one in the country yesterday. And he went and did it, and it was awesome.
All I'm going to say is, Craig Krenzel won a national championship. And I think Kyle McCord's a better quarterback than Craig Krenzel was. And maybe everybody's wrapped up in the identity of what this team has been as this ridiculous, explosive offense. And maybe they'll still get there. We can talk about that, especially going into a week here where the Buckeyes are on a bye. But the identity of this team to me is becoming more and more about the defense. And I want to dive into that too. But I want to put the Notre Dame part of the discussion to bed here quickly. So let's talk about Marcus Freeman for just a quick second and the comments he made post-game, because I like Marcus Freeman. And it was interesting to me that last year, he loses the opener. He goes home and stubs his toe against Marshall, and it like quickly becomes not a great season. But the kind of season where Irish fans are like willing to give him the benefit of the doubt because he's a first-time head coach and maybe it's going to take a little bit of time to figure it out. I have a really hard time now that I have kind of gone back and listened to exactly what he said post-game. I have a really hard time defending him in his perspective. The last 2 plays of the game, everybody on planet Earth that watched this game at this point now knows that there were only 10 guys in the field for Notre Dame for the last 2 plays defensively. He said post-game that he knew after the first of those 2 plays, the incompletion to Marvin Harrison, he knew that there were only 10 guys on the field and that he told the 11th player, don't come out onto the field because I don't want to take a substitution penalty for bringing a guy on, not taking a guy off, and give up half a yard. He said he would rather play 10 on 11 from the 1 yard line than 11 on 11 from the half yard line. And he had a chance to make the substitution anyways, because I'm sure Ohio State's coaching staff recognized there were 10 guys on the field because they made the substitution. Chip Trainum came in for Travion Henderson, which means the referee goes in front of the quarterback, holds up play to make sure the defense doesn't sub. It was a deliberate decision not to take an 18-inch penalty where you had dominated the line of scrimmage in the second half. And I think that is something that is never going to leave his legacy. That was a bad decision.
It doesn't make sense to me. Like, you could take unlimited penalties. The only thing that I could think of in my head is that it was 3rd or 4th down. And like, hey, I don't want to give up the first down. Well, it doesn't matter. Like that part doesn't matter because they don't have any timeouts. Like if you just stop them, if you stop them,
there's 3 seconds left in the game. You either stop
it doesn't even matter. Like,
or you give up a touchdown and you lose. That's it.
It's it. It makes no sense. You could have infinite penalties. You could have an infinite number of substitution penalties without the ball crossing the goal line. Like it does. That comment makes like less than no sense to me because you could do anything. I would have. If I was a defensive lineman and I recognize it and I look to my right and my guy's not there, I would jump off sides or like touch the offensive lineman or like, coach, like we're missing a guy. This is the biggest play of the game. And guess what? they ran it right where there's one guy missing, and Chip got in by the skin of his teeth, man. It was like that comment to me. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know if I missed something, and I watched it back and like definitely heard it in context. Like he was very clearly, obviously, like we're not. I don't want to take this penalty, which I don't understand at all. Yeah. So at this point, maybe it was he was trying to cover for his defense line coach or something along those lines. But like, dude, man, that was a tough. That doesn't make any sense at all.
He blew it. I mean, it just flat out. I am of the opinion that he made a mistake. Maybe even privately, he would still defend it rather than what he did publicly. I don't want to pretend to know what went on behind closed doors, the conversations. I'm sure they were hurting. I'm sure it was, maybe he made a comment in the moment when he was asked about it, whatever. Regardless, I as an Ohio State fan, you sit there and you say, thank you very much, because that was substantially helpful in Ohio State literally winning the game on that play.